Pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have the secretary perform a roll call attendance, please.
Mr. Saru?
Here.
Mr. Farino?
Here.
Mr. Veracruz?
Here.
Mr. Massari?
Present.
Mr. Fowler?
Here. All the board members have received the minutes from the April 3rd meeting. If there's no discussion regarding the minutes, entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
Second.
Okay, motion's been seconded. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. Okay, tonight, our first item on the agenda is an adjourned public hearing for site plan and special use permit for CarMax Auto Superstore. Entertain a motion to open the adjourned public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Motion's made, seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
Good evening, John Thatcher, CenterPoint Integrated Solutions, Development Consultant for CarMax. I've got the rest of the project team here with me today, Steve Hudak from CarMax, Karen Maldanowski from Bowler, and our Lane Attorney, Rick O'Rourke. We appreciate you having us back here tonight, continuing the public hearing from April 3rd. I want to start with just discussing some of the updates that have been made to the plans since we last met. First topic would be screening. I know there were several comments from the adjacent neighbors about screening for the proposed project. A lot of that was discussed at the previous public hearing, but just wanted to kind of recap some of that and expand on some of the things we've changed. So from the western property, kind of the rear of the site, across Osborne Hill Road, where there are some residential properties. As we talked about in the last meeting, there is a large row of existing mature landscaping along Osborne Hill Road, and I will pull up an exhibit to show everyone. I'm sure you've all been out to the site, but just to give you an example of kind of what's there today. All of that will be maintained with this proposed development. That existing mature landscaping is proposed to be maintained as it exists today and will be supplemented with additional plantings on the CarMax side of it to fill in any gaps, fill in the lower level kind of view corridors where the canopy sits up a little higher. We'll have lower shrubs and trees to fully provide a full landscape screen from our site to the residences across Osborne Hill Road. So, and in addition to that, obviously there'll be the 6-foot tall block wall around the staging area on the CarMax site, as we discussed last meeting. This area here would have that 6-foot tall block wall surrounding it. So the combination of the existing mature landscaping, supplemental additional landscaping, and wall, we feel like will provide a great buffer for those residents across Osborne Hill Road. From the southern property, so if you can see my cursor, which would be our neighbor to the south there, there was a comment about screening from our property to that property. That was something that we're glad they brought up. We took another look at that and actually went ahead and added a arborvitae hedgerow along that entire southern property line, where we abut the commercial property more towards the front and Route 9, and then towards the rear. There's a lot of open space associated with a septic field, but regardless, we're filling in that whole southern property line with a hedgerow to provide a nice screen between us and them. We understand a letter was submitted by the southern property owner saying they haven't had a chance to review the latest submittal. Understand, since our last meeting, we obviously took time to look into this issue, the sidewalk issue that was raised, prepare the traffic memo that we submitted. And so, it did take us a little bit of time. We worked with staff to make sure we were getting that in ahead of this meeting. But to their letter, the only thing that really changed between that last submittal and this submittal is something that benefits them, the hedgerow between us and that southern property. So wanted to point that out. And then, as I mentioned, the traffic memo that was submitted as well, basically just details how the proposed development will be a low traffic generator. In fact, we're so low of traffic generator that we didn't meet the threshold for a full study, but we did do that traffic memo as requested, and we have our consultant here that can discuss more detail, but a high-level overview of, just stating that, again, this type of use with the square footage of the building we have is a very low traffic generator, less than or equal to the existing retail that was on the site. And I know there was concern about turning movements in and out of the site. There are adequate gaps in the traffic, more than adequate gaps to easily accommodate those turning movements in and out of the site. So overall, not going to have a notable impact on the traffic operations of Smithtown Road. The driveway was another comment that was discussed at the last public hearing. The westernmost driveway, there was, over the last few meetings, a little bit of back and forth on the truck turn movements and making sure that we had adequate space for that. It was suggested that we change that driveway to have a narrower throat, but with a rollover curb for those trucks as necessary. So we went ahead and made that change as requested as well, and that's shown on the currently submitted plans. Regarding the sidewalk, our attorney, Mr. O'Rourke, had submitted a letter to that effect, so I'll invite him up to speak to that. Thank you.
Thank you, John. One other comment that was made to which we wish to respond, and that was with regard to the water usage. Mention was made as to the car wash. We just want to reaffirm, and obviously this is part of the record, that that is 100% contained. There is no discharge. That water is recycled and used and cleaned, and that is the method which it's not something where we're continuing using water. So I just want to make sure that that's understood and clear. And that's state of the art. I know on other applications we've used in terms of car washes, that's the way in which you can not impact the environment in a negative way. I wrote a letter to Mr. Haran because obviously there have been some determinations made that insofar as communications with the board from an attorney, it should be through his attorney, through the attorney to the board. So what I'd like to do, I don't know whether everyone has had an opportunity to take a look at my letter. If you have not, I have extra copies of it. I did send it to Mr. Haran and did respectfully ask him to distribute it as he saw fit. But the bottom line is this, and this has to do with the sidewalk. The sidewalk is an issue after having been here for, I think, 7 other sessions. It came up for the first time at the public hearing, which sometimes things like that happen. However, it's important to put it in the proper legal framework. Insofar as our site plan and special permit application is concerned, it is our obligation as a matter of law to respond to and to address, mitigate, ameliorate, reduce whatever impacts our application will have insofar as what we will be bringing to that site in terms of impacts. It is not our obligation to address pre-existing conditions which we have not caused, nor are we exacerbating. And so here, based upon the discussions that we've had and recognizing how this issue arose, I just want to make it clear that we're doing everything responsive, as we've discussed, in terms of the impacts that we believe that we will cause by virtue of our development of this site. But insofar as an obligation to address pre-existing conditions, they're not there. Having said that, and in a spirit of cooperation and recognizing that the importance of trying to get this property used for permitted use, and one that legislatively this town has recognized as an appropriate use for this property. We are willing to work with you, establish an escrow account, use that money for the purpose of examining what you might want to do in terms of a sidewalk. And here tonight, John Ahrens, who's one of the trustees of Lou's Trust, who has been fighting for the last 5 years to try to get this property developed and get the money into the charities that Lou wanted as part of his legacy. We are willing to, and John can address it in a more precise manner, we're willing to provide whatever property might be necessary for an examination of putting a sidewalk on the north side of Smithtown Road. And the reason we say that is that if you take a look at the south side, what you have 3 telephone poles. On the north side, there's 1. On the north side, my understanding is from others that are more observant over the years, you've got a flooding problem that happens periodically on Smithtown Road. And I've seen the puddling that's on the north side in that flat area. That's where you need some work. That's where you need some drainage, and that's the most logical site to have a sidewalk. That property is owned by the trust. I'm not going to speak for Mr. Ahrens, but, and he can tell you what they might be able to do to help ameliorate, mitigate what might be a pre-existing condition that we are not exacerbating. So I just want to make it clear. I've cited cases for Mr. Haran. He can read the cases. He can advise you. I just want to make sure that you are aware of the legal context in which this is occurring. The final point I just wanted to raise was that one of the comments that was raised was from the Rettel family, and it had to do with the property that they own to the south. And one of the things that has become apparent to us is that along the south property, that property is now being used as a driveway for the Rettel property, as a house that's immediately to the south side of our property. And there are cars that are parked there. I have photographs from Google Earth. It's not permitted. My understanding is notices have been provided. We are responding by saying we'll put up the landscaping. However, it's not going to allow for the continued trespass on our property. And so I just want to make sure that the board is aware of it. I will supplement it with photographs. I can give you photographs now from Google Map. But nevertheless, there's a residence that's back there, and we want to shield our property from what we're seeing on that residence and the things that are back there. So with that, I'll just turn it over. I don't know, Mr. Ahrens, did you want to say anything on behalf of the trust? Over the past 5 years, he's told us that they've had numerous inquiries from different users. The property is going to be developed one way or the other. You don't want a U-Haul. I think that you have to take a look at what are the permitted uses and the willingness of some major company to come in here, develop a tax rateable that meets and exceeds your requirements, and also has expressed a willingness as a good neighbor to try to ameliorate the problems that you have currently, and also to support the infrastructure proposal to bring water and sewer to this property and to the south on Route 9, and to address whatever issues you have in terms of sewer issues, as I know exist down Osborne Road. We've already set aside, as part of our site plan, property for the eventual use by the municipality for addressing the infrastructure issues that are necessary to make the property more valuable. So, thank you.
Good. Thank you. All right. All right. So we do have an adjourned public hearing this evening. Oh, you want to speak real quick?
Just to recap Mr. O'Rourke's thoughts, the bus stop, the sidewalk issue, that is an existing issue. We're not causing that. We're not making that worse. We don't feel we should be responsible for fixing that issue, but we do want to be a good part of the community. And we do want to get this wrapped up tonight. We'd love to close the public hearing and have you direct staff to take action on the seeker documentation. And so, you know, just to kind of recap that, we've analyzed, and the sidewalk really does not work on our side of the site. There is not enough right-of-way available. And then within our property, there are all sorts of conflicts with power poles, drainage features, things of that nature that would cause the sidewalk to jog all over. And if we were able to put that there and maintain the landscape buffer, that would essentially cause a very significant redesign to the entire site and effectively kind of squeeze it and push the developed area back further towards Osborne Hill Road. And so, you know, we obviously don't want to do that. You know, we're looking at what would be a fairly significant redesign of our site that would make things, you know, not as favorable for the neighbors because of an existing issue. And you know, we just don't feel like after a year of being here that issue should cause us to have to redesign that site in that aspect. So, but all that said, like I said, we wanting to be a good part of the community and participate in a solution, and we think the best way to do that would be to put some money into escrow for the town to be able to address that sidewalk issue as they see fit. We believe the north side of Smithtown may be the appropriate place for that. So just wanted to, again, recap that. We appreciate all your consideration of this project, and the project team and I are here to answer any questions you have. Thanks.
All right, so with that, I think maybe we should just, this is an adjourned public hearing, so I will open the floor again for public comment, just so that the board can get an idea of if there's any other comment that any of the residents in the area have. So if you wish to speak, please step up to the podium, state your name for the record, name and address for the record.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Frank Rettel. I'm the project manager for 80 Washington Square Properties. We're the neighbor directly to the south of where CarMax wants to develop. It wasn't until Friday afternoon that we learned that there was a submission and CarMax addressed some of the comments that we made last time. We know that this is a permitted use. We're not trying to kill the project. Our request is to adjourn the public hearing so that our consultants can review the minor landscape addition that they made and lighting, so that we can perhaps give this board some fruit and to use it so they can make a good decision to design a good property here. So with that, we would ask that the public hearing be kept open and adjourned.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and board members. I'm Albert Roberts, and I'm representing Lawrence Farms. At the outset, I just want to join in the request for to keep the public hearing open so that we have an opportunity to vet and comment on the late submissions. It's my understanding, as I remember the town code, that these submissions should have been made about 2 weeks prior. And it's unfair to have them submitted just a couple of days before the board meeting without giving the public and those interested in an opportunity to vet and comment. And I would like to echo what Mr. Rettel said. Number one, my clients did not specifically oppose the project. Unfortunately, this project does not belong here, but the zoning code permits it, so we can't change the zone, and we know you can't. It's just that this high-intensity used car dealership is incompatible with Lawrence Farms and with the 2 restaurants fronting on Route 9. This is the last and the nicest and most properly planned commercial quadrant in the town. And as such, while we shouldn't necessarily oppose the project, we shouldn't make it easy by bending the rules. And the town board recently adopted the lighting code, and they did it for a reason. Once you authorize an amendment or a waiver, that waiver is going to be precedent for any other project that comes down the line. And I want to recall your attention, it wasn't too long ago, that the car dealership about 1.5 miles north of here was required to specifically comply with the new lighting code. And it seems unfair that there should be different standards for different uses. The lighting code should not be waived. And again, I want to repeat, whatever you approve in terms of a waiver will be a precedent for future applications. You're emasculating what the town board just did. Raising the light poles by 4 feet is going to raise the glow, and this is a layman speaking, is going to raise the glow of the light by 4 feet. We would hope that you can keep the lighting consistent with the recently adopted code amendments and just make this impact lessened on the existing Lawrence Farms shopping center. If the project is approved, it should be done in a manner that is most compatible with the existing uses to the south and least offensive to the adjacent uses. Accordingly, the lighting code should not be waived. And lastly, I just want to emphasize that we'd like to keep the public hearing open so that we can, at least I hope the town's consultants are going to respond to the last submission, and we can supply comment both to that and to the existing submissions that have been submitted just last week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul Mercier, Lighting Design Innovations on behalf of CarMax. I just wanted to address the idea of that glow that he's referring to. As you're well aware, because we've spoken quite a bit about this, is the concept of the light fixtures that we have presently. There is zero uplight. So that means that the light fixtures that are designed for application, in this particular application, are the best light source to make sure that there is no sky glow, that there is no light pollution going up into the sky whatsoever beyond the light fixture. The other aspect about that, I think that's quite important, is the idea that that pole height actually allows us to provide a much more uniform lighting, which means that there are no hot spots. We have actually met the code as written here in Wappinger for that low light level. We have gone through a lot of iterations to make sure that we've actually achieved that so that the lighting in that condition is going to be soft and not provide that glow that you're referring to. These are not the light fixtures that you presently see amongst the Wappinger facilities, where the lights are actually on an angle that throw a lot of their light in the sky. These are straight down. They are done in such a way that there is zero light going up. So there's less of a glow than most of your applications that you have presently. Thank you.
Does anyone else wishes to speak? No.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name's John Mulder, and I live in 46 Osborne Hill Road. My question to the board is, has anything changed or been authorized between the last meeting on the 3rd of April and tonight?
No, nothing. We haven't authorized anything.
Okay.
So we're at, just to keep the record clear.
Okay. Within 48 hours after the meeting on the 3rd, on the afternoon of the 5th, a 24-wheel semi-dump truck came in with 3 loads. God knows how many cubic yards of fill were involved, but 3 truckloads. And they had a front loader to push it out where they wanted it to go.
And this is at the old Plant Depot site?
This is at the old Plant Depot site, and the truck came in from the west side off Osborne Hill Road. 3 times.
Okay,
And I have pictures to support it.
okay. I'll refer that to Mrs. Roberti, if you could look into that.
Thanks.
Okay, is there anyone else? Okay.
Excuse me, can I just ask the applicants, did you have any dirt put in while you're here?
We don't own the property currently, so we're not making any of these improvements, obviously, until
So
the
when I go
site
out
is.
tomorrow, I know it wasn't you. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Do you wish to speak? You come up to the podium, please.
Yeah, Nancy Ricky, Osborne Hill Road. I'm not here to cause any trouble, but what I'd like to understand is how many and what kind of trucks are going to be coming in and out of there? And I don't understand completely. I think either way, it's not good or bad, is that if trucks are coming south on Route 9, are they going to be turning into Smithtown and then going left?
No, they're just going onto the property from Smithtown.
I'm sorry?
They're just going into the property on Smithtown, so they're just going into the old Plant Depot site. They're not going down Osborne Hill Road.
Right. Yeah, that I understand. But that corner is so congested. People don't stop there. People don't think that people are going to go straight on that road as opposed to turning onto Smithtown. I see so much, but, sorry, but I don't understand why you have to, and that means they're all going to be coming down Osborne Hill Road then, correct? Well, I mean, some will.
No, car carriers won't.
Car carriers aren't supposed to go down there. They're just going to go back out to Route 9.
I think a lot of trucks aren't supposed to go down there, but because Fishkill is so congested, they do.
Yeah, again, that's something that we have no control over.
Yeah.
That's going to
well,
happen no matter what. That's unfortunately, it's a
But if they're
matter for
coming
the
south,
town board.
if they're coming south on, why can't they go into the entrance that has been there, right off of Route 9? Okay, so it might have a safety issue. I don't see that. Trucks still have to slow down to go into there, and if you're any kind of truck driver, I'm a CDL driver, if you're any kind of driver, you know to slow down enough so that there's not going to be people being stupid, because people are stupid driving anyway. So why does it have to come in? That road is going to get beaten up so bad that any way possible it should go in just and go. As opposed to that, and that sharp turn if they're coming south, there's cars right there.
Okay.
Because there's hardly room for the cars that wait for the light now, or turns. So I don't see why they can't go into the old entrance if they're coming on 9.
Okay.
I don't know. It seems like a waste of an entrance to me, even if it's supposedly being closed down. Why close it down?
That's not for us. That's, for State DOT. They were the ones that prefer to see it on the Smithtown Road side. Okay. Anybody else come on up.
Just a brief comment.
Step up to the microphone, please.
Robert Roberts again. I just want to emphasize that by raising the light poles from 15 to 19 feet, the point source is going to be raised by 4 feet. And that's going to be the most visible origin of the light. And, you know, to minimize it, I think it needs to be vetted, and very much like to hear what the town planner has to say about that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to, sorry, Paul Mercier, Lighting Design Innovations. I'd like to indicate that all of the light fixtures that are around the perimeter of the site actually have an additional louver. It's not required by your code. CarMax put it in to make sure that the light sources were not visible beyond 7 feet from the pole. So the light fixtures that are around the perimeter cannot be seen further away from 7 feet.
Okay. Any, we'll see if there are any comments from staff at this point.
I have, I mean, as the members of the public have mentioned, the plans came in far later than we expected. I don't believe John has had a chance to review the new submission. I have certainly not had a chance to review the new submission. In light of that, I do think that it would be wise to adjourn the public hearing so that John and I have the opportunity to review the plans. Based on the representation from the applicant, the one thing that I would mention, I haven't looked at the traffic elements of their submission yet. We'll have our traffic engineers take a look at that. While they are here, though, I know that at the public hearing, both members of the board and members of the public discussed the queuing off of waiting to get onto 9 along Smithtown Road, what those queues would look like at peak hours and whether or not that would obstruct the entrance. I don't know if that information is included in the traffic submission. If it's not, and you have that information, we would love to have that as part of our traffic review. If it's in that traffic submission, then you know we will review it and we'll get back to the board before the next meeting.
A full traffic study was not required. We agreed to provide a traffic memo. This type of use, especially compared to a lot of retail type uses that would be allowed with the same zoning, is a very low traffic generator. The memo, while not as comprehensive as a full study, which again was not required, we just provided the memo at your request, does echo what we've been saying all along about this being a very low traffic generator, and it addresses the gaps in traffic necessary to make the turns in and out of the site. So again, it just confirms what we've been saying all along, that this will not cause any sort of negative impact to the traffic operations on the site. It's, again, compared to a lot of things that could go here, it is a very low trip generator, and as the memo states, and as we've been stating all along, even though a full traffic study was not required, it will have a very minimal impact. And also regarding the landscape buffer from the southern property, at the last meeting there was a request for screening. We have 10-foot landscape area there, and that is enough space for a hedge, and that hedge will provide the required screening, and we have provided for that and believe we have addressed that comment. So again, I'd just like to stress that we have worked with the planning board for over a year. The site plan has come a very long ways from where it started. We're trying to do everything we can, but we would like to move this forward and request the public hearing close tonight. We've addressed the screening issue with that hedgerow to the south that will provide a screen. We would like that as much as the southern neighbor would probably like it upon further review, especially up front with their building where it is. we would prefer that screening be in place from our sales lot, so we're not looking at that apartment aspect of the building in the back of the restaurant there. And so, and then to quickly touch on the lighting again, we're meeting the lighting code from the foot candles. It is as dim as the code requires it to be. It is not, there's not light spill coming off the property, as Paul alluded to. If anything, with the commercial properties to the north and the south of us, we'll get light spill from them, but it will not be going the other way around. This will be a very dim site, and we are meeting the lighting code foot candle levels on site, limiting the light spill. We have the louvers, and it will not negatively impact the neighbors.
Good evening. Just to add on to what John said, for the record, Karen Majanowski with Bowler Engineering, as it relates to analyzing the queuing that was brought up at the public hearing last month. As you can see, and I understand not everyone has maybe read the traffic memo, but we did engage an outside traffic expert to review the conditions that are there and the potential impacts of this low traffic generator project. A couple more points of summary for that. They did find an average 15-second gap on Smithtown where 6 to 9 seconds is sufficient as it relates to turning movements and queuing and gaps. Also, the distance from the stop bar of the intersection of Route 9 and Smithtown with the leg that goes across our site frontage of Smithtown would allow for approximately a 9 to 10 car stack to queue at that intersection before it reaches our first driveway. As a reminder, we did want a driveway closer to Route 9, but throughout working with this board and this project, we did remove that so that our curb cuts went from 3 to 2 and are as far from the intersection on Smithtown as possible to allow for that queuing.
The other thing that I would appreciate clarification from the applicant on, they discussed an escrow account for the exploration of a sidewalk along the northern side of Smithtown Road. They mentioned that the trust that owns the property currently owns property along the northern side of Smithtown Road.
Doesn't their parking lot from, what is it, the welding place or something across the street, doesn't it come right up to the road?
The air gas?
Yeah, air gas.
Yeah, I believe so. When we saw a site plan
So they'd have to
for
lose
them
their
recently,
parking lot.
it was a very, very
Yeah, they have
tight.
to lose their parking lot to put.
And they barely made the parking count as is. So I think that the idea of a sidewalk along the northern side of Smithtown Road is,
Well, that wouldn't work anyway, because then they'd have to cross the traffic between Smithtown and Route 9 to get to the bus stop.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is part of the question here is,
The loop
there
bus
does not
stops
appear to
right out
be
front of
a
your
bus stop. Is the bus stop on the north side of the
No, it's
Smithtown
on-
intersection or the south side of the intersection?
Southbound. It's
Okay.
right in front of your place is where the
Right.
loop bus stops.
Okay, so
The
even
bus
from the
doesn't
north
have
side, they
stops
could
everywhere,
still cross
but that's where it
over
stops.
to the southern. It just, the way the road sits within the right-of-way, it is very close to that southern property line.
The other consideration, they discuss, that there's a landscape buffer along that line. Instead of reconfiguring the parking lot, we can bring the trees, which are ideal, down onto the sections of island that extend into the parking lot. We can lose a certain amount of the vegetated buffer along the frontage of Smithtown and make up for the lack of right-of-way that way. See how much of a sidewalk would fit there without that vegetated buffer. See if that is of a sufficient width. Again, I haven't had a chance to review the plans, but it sounds like even a hypothetical sidewalk has not been provided, even,
Well, right now, everybody that uses that bus stop from the little trailer park and a couple houses are back there, basically walk right through the parking lot,
Yeah,
the Plant Depot parking lot, and they're not gonna be able to do that now.
yeah,
So they're gonna be forced to walk on the road.
yes.
So they need a sidewalk. That's a problem. They need a sidewalk.
And it's, as the applicant has mentioned, the right-of-way is very narrow. It's a very narrow road, and that is,
Yeah, well, before they were able to walk through the parking lot. where they can't do that now.
Or at least along the shoulder that was there that will no longer be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, as Rick mentioned, or Mr. O'Rourke mentioned, it's an existing condition that we are not causing or making worse with our
We actually are
application.
causing it because they can't walk through the parking lot anymore,
I don't believe they would have.
unless you,
Yeah, that's not what
They
the
walk in the
parking lot was. It wasn't for access to the bus stop before. I mean, that's an existing issue. And I wanted to clarify something on the escrow condition. We were talking about enough for analysis, design, and installation of a sidewalk on Smithtown Road. It's not a monetary issue from CarMax so much as it just does not work with the site plan as we have it arranged today. And so we want to participate, just trying to find the right way to do that.
If I may, I'm hearing that there's no bus stop. I'm trying to...
There's no public bus stop there.
So,
There's no pickup, there's no...
Who's this guy talking?
There's no...
I don't know. Can you stand up and identify yourself, please?
Robert Bayakowski, I'm a broker for the site, and when this came up, and being a resident and for a long time and owning property up and down 9, I've looked into the bus stops because I was curious to see where the county buses pick up people. If they're dropping off, they need to pick up, and there is no bus stop there currently according to the websites. So if I'm wrong and people can call up or do something that I don't know about, that's possible, but I'm just relaying from what I researched. So my concern was, in reviewing the site, where are the people coming from? How are they getting to Smithtown safely to pick up a sidewalk, and where are they going? Because if somebody does a walk and there's not a safe way to get to that walkway, who's responsible? If they get hit crossing Osborne Hill or coming up from further, where's the density? Because I see a lot of single-family residents around here. Single-family residents mostly have the cars in the driveway if you look on Google Earth. So who's walking all along Osborne Hill from where? Where's that density pocket to get to where if there's no bus stop? So I'm curious. I mean, I could see in John Lawrence's place, you could have a bus stop there because maybe they want to go shopping or something. But there's nothing now. So I'm confused for good engineering practices, why all of a sudden at the 9th hour are we saying it's good engineering practices, put a walkway from nowhere to somewhere and attract people to it along Osborne or somewhere else where they could be damaged. So
I just, one point of clarification. It's my understanding, I think Malcolm said that the Aircast site was reviewed recently, or?
No, it was maybe 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago.
Yeah, that was the enclosure to go around the,
They were putting in an
around the
enclosure
tanks.
exterior.
They were putting in
Yeah.
an enclosure.
We're just remembering having looked at that site plan at that time, right? They weren't redeveloping the site, they were expanding, they were reinforcing the concrete blocks.
there was something with the parking spots, remember, they were compact spots because there wasn't enough room?
Yeah, they lost a parking spot by increasing the thickness of the concrete blocks around their propane storage.
I was just curious because it doesn't appear as there was any discussion about a sidewalk then, so it's nothing that we're doing that if there was a pre-existing condition, I would imagine that it should have been addressed previously. If I may just say one last thing, and that's this. Obviously, the sidewalk is an issue for us because we have to then essentially redesign our site plan, come back to you, and it strikes us that when you know that there's a willingness to provide property on the north side, it makes more sense from a drainage perspective and everything else. Just, we're confused by this, shall we say, 23rd hour requirement for this. Finally, insofar as that intersection of Smithtown and Route 9, that's a signalized intersection. So people could be walking to the north, they could be walking to the south, and if it's a signalized intersection, so long as there's a walk sign, don't walk sign, or walk sign that's there, the sidewalk could be on either side. Anyway, we respectfully request that the public hearing be closed. As far as the landscaping is concerned, we have a 10-foot wide strip. The plan that was submitted was to respond to the comment that was made, put landscaping. There's only 10 feet we can work with. What are we going to do? I mean, if you don't like the arborvitae, we'll put some other trees, but I mean, that's all we can do. So for there to be a further analysis based upon the examination of what to do on a 10-foot strip on the perimeter of the property, respectfully would think that the board could exercise its common sense and understand that you could close the public hearing. Thank you.
All right. So with that said, I mean, the sidewalk seems to be an issue we need to discuss, I guess, at some, and as well as, closing, I mean, that seems to be an issue that we need to address right now in determination of whether or not to even close a public hearing, because, again, if it's something that's going to have to go forward, I mean, we're still, we're kind of bound to dealing with it. The other problem is I know that everybody just received all this information this afternoon, which unfortunately has always been a problem that I've had with it, with submissions being made, because everything's coming in at the last minute. We're standing here, everybody's trying to hash out everything right here on the floor and basically trying to put pressure on the board to come up with a decision at this point in time.
Yeah, I don't think we can make a decision on that because we haven't even been able to evaluate. I mean, we had a public hearing last time, and supposedly they'll accommodate certain things that were brought up in the public hearing, and we don't even know if they were fixed because we haven't even, professionals haven't been able to look it over, and we haven't.
Right, they haven't, right, exactly. They haven't provided us with any insight or information to move forward.
Yeah, I
In
think.
terms of that, I mean, do we,
Well, also, those light poles got to be to code too. They're way too high. I mean, we make every other car dealer around there abide to this. That's,
Yeah, the precedent it sets.
yeah, that's ridiculous. I mean, we got one coming up tonight with the same exact, almost kind of deal.
yeah,
How are we going to respond to that? Just let everybody do what they want to do?
no, I agree.
And that sidewalk thing, that was brought up in the last public hearing, so that's why we have a public hearing.
The sidewalk is part of the comprehensive plan, correct?
No, we don't have anything in our code.
In the comp plan?
Maybe in the comp plan, but it's not in the code.
That's what,
Not in the code, yeah. So
Not in the code, but the comprehensive plan does mention that.
The comprehensive plan does mention.
Yeah, it does.
Well, this issue with the sidewalk, I mean, if we want to resolve this tonight,
Yeah,
you want to consult with the town attorney before we make any decisions on moving forward here?
If we should,
You want to do, actually with the town attorney and the planner
Yeah.
regarding
that's a
this?
good idea.
Yeah,
We go in executive session?
sure.
To consult with legal counsel?
Yes.
All right, somebody want to make that motion?
So moved.
Second?
All right, motion made, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all right, we'll be back. Let's go in the other room.